YouTube, welcome back to the Coinist podcast. I'm your host, Luke, the best place to keep up with the crypto market. No shills, no spins, just having on the top investors, best analysts, biggest exchanges every single week. Today's episode is with Yoni Assia, co-founder and CEO of eToro, but you might know him from somewhere else. He just went to dinner with Justin Sun and Warren Buffett. So if you're wondering, what crypto does Warren Buffett own? Is he actually sold on crypto? Does he still think it's rat poison? Whatever his opinion is, we talk about it here. What went down at that dinner? Yoni was the guest at that dinner, and it was a fascinating discussion learning what Warren Buffett, one of the most legendary investors ever, thinks about Bitcoin. I had to ask him that. We also talk about the halving. Yoni has lived through that as a Bitcoin investor. A lot of you, myself included, did not own Bitcoin during the last halving, so a unique perspective there. We also talk about ETH and DeFi. He's worked on Vitalik on some very early projects. Yoni has a wealth of information. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this show. It was an absolute pleasure to put on. Before we get into the show, though, I want to remind you, on audio, this show is booming. So if you like to listen to the podcast on the go, there's a lot of you who drive to work, you're shopping, whatever it might be, you're trading. You can't watch the video, but you want to listen to these. You want to be the first one to hear this information every single week. iTunes and Spotify link are right down below. Or if you like watching here on YouTube, thanks for stopping by. You can keep watching, right? Remember to subscribe, hit that button right down below so you get the insights you need to hear. Now, before we get into the show, one last thing, and it's going to take me 30 seconds. Quick shout out to the companies that sponsor this show. eToro, the worldwide leader in social trading, for based in the US. Go check them out. Links right down below. Also, Bybit Exchange. If you're an active trader, you trade Bitcoin, ETH, XRP, killer mobile app. You get a deposit bonus if you use my link right down below this video. Also, cryptotrader.tax. If you're procrastinating on your taxes, you don't know where to start, you bought and sold crypto, go to cryptotrader.tax. They automate it for you in 5 minutes. All right, enough of that. Let's get into the show. Thank you guys so much for watching. I cannot thank you enough. I don't say it enough. Thank you guys. Enjoy this one. I did, and I think it'll provide a ton of value as well. See you guys soon. Yoni, we're live. Yeah. What's going on, man?
All good, all good.
I see you're rocking a fresh little eToro. What does that say? A fresh eToro. I love stocks.
That's I love stocks, and that's an embarrassing part if somebody's trying to read it.
Especially now, I see. So what's going on, man? Where are you at? You're in Israel?
Yeah, I'm in our offices in Israel. We're about 500 people here in Israel out of the 850 globally.
Nice. I have to ask, how was the lunch with Warren Buffett? How did that go down, right? You went to Justin Sun's lunch. You get invited. Who else was there?
So first of all, dinner. So we had a great dinner. We also went to lunch at Buffett's favorite steakhouse, but the actual event with Warren Buffett was dinner. Justin Sun, of course, with his team, Helen from Binance, Charles from Huobi, Charlie Lee from Litecoin. So that was the team. It was really, for me, it was a life-changing event. And that's because I'm actually passionate about capital markets since I was very young. I started trading capital markets since I was 13. And I always say, like, there's 3 pieces of technology that for me were sort of game changers. It was the internet, wherein I realized like everybody can connect with everybody, send information around the world. I remember I used to download Simpson episode scripts on bulletin boards. Then the first time I traded stocks was for me also, a game changer. When you realize you're buying stock in a company, you can suddenly see your trade happening in NASDAQ. And then the third was the first time I moved Bitcoin from one place to another. And the real connection between all of those is it's all about sort of the connectivity of everyone everywhere to this one huge organism. But the reason for me the dinner with Buffett was so impactful is because he was actually sort of saying a lot of the things. So I read a couple of books of Buffett, and I'm familiar with a lot of his quotes. And he was sort of very adamant on his way of thinking about the markets, about what's interesting for him. And it took me a while to understand that he also is sort of quoted saying that if he wasn't the world's sort of biggest investor, he would be a teacher. And that I'm actually sitting at dinner with him where he's teaching us his path, his way. And his path is actually very clear. He believes in investing in businesses rather than sort of speculating or investing in things like gold or Bitcoin. So we believe in investing in businesses that generate cash flows, jobs, and value to consumers. He believes only in investing in things that he understands. And when he says that, he says he needs to be able to read the annual reports of these companies and to understand them. He believes investing in capital markets is actually much simpler, and that Wall Street is always just trying to make it complicated. And a lot of professionals will try to complicate things for you, but actually investing in the market is simple. And he's very clear that if you follow the rules of value investing, which is the book he mentioned over dinner by Benjamin Graham, the Intelligent Investor. I think it was published in 1949, or maybe that's when he read it for the first time, that if you follow the rules of value investing, you will be able to generate over a significant period of time double-digit returns. And the reason it's mind-blowing is for the past 20 plus years I've been in capital markets, I don't know that many people who actually follow value investing. It's like almost, a lost sort of magic of the market, something that, older generations used to follow very clearly. And then sort of our generation almost always looks at growth investing or opportunities that have sort of higher digit returns like crypto possibilities. But I realized that the biggest investor of all times in capital markets is actually telling us this book is actually the magic or the rules of how to generate magical returns in the markets. And that was for me like, a game changer to realize sometimes how simply the answers are on the table if you devote the time and actually try to learn from what you're reading about other people.
That's insane. He's, sticking with value investing that long, he's kind of a creature of habit. He goes to that same restaurant that you guys had lunch at like every day, or is it every week? Did he talk about that?
So they told us, we actually asked there. So we went to the court, the steakhouse at lunch, and they told us, like, they showed us where he sits, and he told us that he comes there and sits there once or twice a month for the past, X amount of years, very regularly. And they actually had like a board picture of Warren Buffett at the restaurant, so we took pictures with the board before dinner as well.
That's hilarious. Did crypto get brought up at all? I know that's definitely not his bread and butter. He prefers to focus on businesses, cash flows. That's just where he made his money, right? It makes sense. And this is new. Did it come up though? I'm sure Justin had to talk about it.
So we started the dinner with Justin actually giving a couple of presents to Warren Buffett. Some of them like more culture, Chinese stuff. And some of them were actually, he gave him the Samsung that actually folds. I don't know if you're familiar with that phone. It's like the newest.
I've seen it, yeah.
From Samsung. And then he showed him, he opened, I think it was the Opera browser and the Tron wallet. And he showed him that he actually has on his Samsung built-in cold storage that actually holds Tron and Bitcoin. So you can definitely say now that Warren Buffett actually owns Tron and Bitcoin because Justin gave it to him. I'm not sure whether he's used to it or changed it. You can probably see the addresses. I think Justin published the addresses so we can follow what Buffett does with his newly claimed Bitcoins.
Yeah.
And later on in the conversation, we actually did talk both about blockchain and Bitcoin. Obviously, we were all there very much to sort of get the view and try to convince Buffett of the value of crypto. I think generally he was very open towards blockchain. He said that he knows a lot of smart people who believe in blockchain and say that it's a disruptive technology. Then he also said that he doesn't yet see companies use it to generate real value. So maybe it's not there yet, but it's definitely technology to follow. But then he used I'd say the echo chamber standard of blockchain is important, but not Bitcoin. When he talked about Bitcoin, a lot of people around the room said, listen, it says, the world needs, permissionless, censorship-less currency. And then he mentioned, the usuals of how can you call it a currency if it's so volatile and goes from $20,000 to $3,000. And he said, what's wrong with the dollar? So the dollar is more stable. It actually keeps its value over time relatively. Then I mentioned inflation, obviously, and the fact that actually currencies do get devalued. And then he said, right, so that's why you need to invest in companies and invest in capital markets.
Sure.
He doesn't think investing in any currency is actually a good investment. He believes investing in businesses is a good investment. So, and then he gave us the example of gold. So he said, listen, if you take all the gold in the world, you stuff it up together, it's one football stadium. With that amount of money, you can actually buy Apple, and I think he mentioned a couple of other companies like, the likes of Amazon, Microsoft, etc. There's $9 trillion of gold in the world. He says these companies over the next 20 years will generate so many services, so much value, employ people, and they actually generate value. But if you go back to the football stadium with gold in 20 years, you still have the same football stadium with gold. So his view is that buying something just because other people will buy it and therefore the value will go up, he calls that speculation. He's obviously familiar with the space, but that's just not his cup of tea.
Yeah. It's hard to argue with his results, but I think it's just one of those things. I don't think he's going to come around to it, regardless of what you guys said there. I was looking up some stats, $88 billion of net worth. It's almost like half of Bitcoin's market cap, 99% of that coming after he was 50, almost entirely with that buy and hold. Is there a way to kind of copy what Warren Buffett is doing on eToro?
Coming back from there, and I'm going to go back there to the at Berkshire annual meeting in May. So we actually have quite a few value investors in eToro, and we're now developing a program in eToro for value investors. So you'll be able to copy them on eToro. You can actually today also copy Warren Buffett on the eToro platform. So that's still for people outside the US. So outside the US, we offer commission-free stock trading. In the US, we only offer crypto for now. But outside the US, you can actually copy Warren Buffett based on his 13F SEC reporting and get his actual portfolio allocation and copy that. So you can definitely try and do that on eToro. I think the most important thing, remember, thinking about value investing, it's a very long-term strategy. So if you take, for example, $100,000 and you invest them for 30 years, and they generate on average 20% returns for those 30 years. Can you do the quick math of how much $100,000 will be worth in 30 years?
No, I definitely can't in my head right now. I'm moving slow this morning.
So it's $23 million. So 20% returns, which is very good returns, but not unachievable returns in the markets, will generate $23 million in 30 years. And that's another great take for me from the dinner is you need to at least have a significant part of your investments that sit there for a very long period of time. And when you have a good bet or a good investment, whether it's an Apple, which I think I sold when it was $40, or whether it's Amazon or Microsoft, which all sort of significantly performed in the markets, you need to sort of be very patient and actually avoid the market and just keep hodling them, right? So, which is very similar to what a lot of the crypto enthusiasts are saying around crypto. So there's a very big difference between investing in companies and the markets than investing in crypto, which is a more speculative asset. But that specific, I think, is very similar, which is about hodling. So if you do buy Bitcoin and invest in crypto, do it for the long term. Don't try to constantly move them when the market moves. If the price gets lower, it might be a good opportunity to accumulate. Prices gets higher, maybe you can take some of the profits out, but remember that you want that investment for a very long period of time. If you, again, believe in the thesis of Bitcoin as a type of currency of the internet, which obviously I'm a very big believer of. I think Bitcoin is a great hedge against government. Governments are sort of have the habit of destroying value and devaluing their currencies over time. All of the currencies are devaluing over time, almost by definition of how governments manage monetary and fiscal policy. And if you think about it, the majority of people around the world, actually their local currencies is something that you wouldn't be willing to invest even $1, right? So the majority of people around the world, over half of people in the world, live in countries where it doesn't really make sense to own their currency, and you're better off owning something like Bitcoin or the dollar, but it's not that necessarily that easy to own dollars there. Yeah. So I definitely believe in sort of the potential value of Bitcoin, but again, it is a speculative asset. It is something that people need to understand the risk and not sort of go all in with all of their savings into, but it's definitely something that has very high potential.
One of the things that, one of the quotes that stuck with me on our first call, I don't know when we spoke, it was probably 6 months ago, and I was asking you about, your view of trading. You grew up trading. It's been something you've been doing for years and years. At the same time, you have this conviction long-term in Bitcoin. And one of the things you said you have to balance kind of the willingness and the desire to trade. If you have conviction in this asset, in Bitcoin, for the long term, you have to maintain, that's my macro view. So any trading I'm doing should be supporting that view, meaning, my goal here is to stay long. Anything I'm doing on a shorter time frame has to be kind of pointed in that same direction. That's really stuck with me, having that macro view. Do you even get excited, since you have that view, since you've seen Bitcoin through quite a few peaks and troughs, do you get excited about Bitcoin at 10K anymore? It seems like people aren't as excited of Bitcoin at 10K right now. Do you have to see it at all-time highs to get excited?
So I have a love-hate relationship with the price of Bitcoin. and the reason is I'm very long-term bullish on Bitcoin, and therefore when the prices go up, I sort of feel I haven't bought enough.
Yeah.
So I constantly, when I see prices going up, I'm like, I haven't bought enough. And when I see prices going down, I'm like, is this an opportunity, or is this actually now going down further? Because I've experienced that as well. So I actually bought a lot of ETH on the way down from $1,000 to $150. Like I bought down at 800, 700, 600, 400, 300, and then I'm like, okay, I'll have to stop buying now. And that's really how Mr. Market is always confusing you. Like you stop buying when the market goes lower and lower and lower, because you start suddenly fear that there's really a reason for them to get as low, and you start having the FOMO feeling where you feel you have to have more or to buy more, only when the markets are really sort of accelerating forward. I'm still human, so I have all that range of feelings of love, hate with the price of Bitcoin. But generally, right now, I'm very adamant that if it goes down below 8,000, I'm going to buy it.
There you go. There you go. Having that stringent rule. What are your thoughts on switching a little bit away from Bitcoin? What are your thoughts, right? DeFi is so hot, right? You also have the exploits happening, and a lot of people are talking about that. There's a concept which I think you were involved with in kind of the early days called colored coins. And you can almost think, I almost think of that as like DeFi before DeFi. What's like a brief history of colored coins? What was your involvement there? Because I don't think that's something that a lot of people are familiar with. And since people are focusing so much on DeFi, it probably makes sense to understand the history of colored coins. What were colored coins?
So our view, when I first saw Bitcoin, I said, wow, this is how money should work. Like money, because I deal a lot with transfers of money. We did almost $1 trillion in volume in 1 year. So we do a lot with transfers of money between financial institutions. And that entire world is completely broken. T+1, T+2, a team of accountants reconciling to look at transfers that went 2 days ago actually happened and reached your account. So when I saw Bitcoin, I said, okay, this is how money should work. Digital native asset, when it moves, it actually moves. You don't need to reconcile it because the pre-trade, trade, and post-trade are the same. But you need to have that technology to be able to transfer real assets, euros, dollars, yens, pounds. So we started this project called Colored Coins in eToro, and then I published something at Bitcoin Talk at the forums around colored coins. How can we utilize the Bitcoin protocol in order to issue basically what's called today stablecoins, to issue USD on Bitcoin, Euro on Bitcoin, gold on Bitcoin, and this was back in 2012. Then a group of people, a lot of the OGs joined a Google group that we set up, and we wrote a white paper. Vitalik was a part of that white paper, so he made the majority of the heavy lifting of writing the white paper, which I've co-authored with him. But let's be frank, he's a much better white paper writer than I am. And funny story is it's still the first link. So if you go to the Ethereum white paper, so the mention of colored coins, I think, is the first link, and it links actually to the paper, to the original paper where me and Vitalik sort of wrote it on a Google Doc. But there was a group of people basically started talking about tokenization. This is again in back 2012, 2013. We actually had a team in eToro building a decentralized exchange on top of the Bitcoin protocol that used the colored coins protocol to be able to issue new type of assets. So we issued gold coins, we issued IBM share coins back on colored coins, and we actually built a decentralized exchange to show that you can do what we call then atomic swaps. So you can basically do a IBM shares to dollar coins swap in one transaction, which actually reduces. So that's a great innovation of decentralized exchanges, is the ability to basically swap assets without a third party, without any basically middleman. So we built that back then. At some point, Vitalik came up with the concept of building a new blockchain. The majority of people in the sort of community of colored coins, or obviously as most people back in 2013 were Bitcoin maximalists, as well as I was. And we were like, why do we need another blockchain? Let's just build it on Bitcoin. So he went on and sort of at the same time started writing the white paper of Ethereum, which, by the way, back then looked completely fiction. So I think when he sent me the white paper of Ethereum, I sent him back an email saying, you're trying to do here to the legal system what Bitcoin does to money. Yeah. Because for us, for most of the world, what Bitcoin is trying to do to money, right, decentralized money, is still far off. It's still going to take time. So if you think about the legal system and potentially smart contracts replacing the legal system and lawyers, I thought that was like further 10 to 20 years further away from Bitcoin. But I think ICOs accelerated that a lot. And I have to say, like, I'm a very big fan of what's happening in the DeFi space. So again, we deal a lot with financial transactions, with complex derivatives, with complex transactions, and being able to do these transactions, whether it's flash loans, whether it's all of the type of decentralized leverage, swaps. I think doing all of that in a decentralized way is really awesome. And I think right now, when we're seeing, these transactions, these exploits, I have a board just there, like on the open space, like explaining what happened there. So first of all, it's the first time I sort of came about flash loans, which is an awesome concept.
Yep.
I'm definitely looking into eToro now issuing flash loans. But flash loans is basically getting a loan, an unlimited loan, marginless loan for one block, right? Which is crazy. Like you get he took, I think, like $5.5 million loan, but but the loan actually needs to go back to the lender from the borrower within one block.
Yeah,
that can only be done in DeFi. Like when I'm trying to explain people the concept of a loan for 8 seconds outside of the DeFi space, nobody can even realize how it works. You need to explain to someone how does smart contracts work in atomic transactions to realize the genius of flash loans and what you can do with them. But then you go over the exploit and you realize there's compound, DYDX, BZX, and Kyber or Uniswap. I don't remember if there was another entity there. There was an exploit of shorting in order to cause an oracle to have an inaccurate price. And all of that is done within those 8 seconds of the block, which is mind-blowing. Like you can't have that. Like think about the regular world where you go to one financial institution to do a deal, then go to another financial institution to do some reversal of that deal, or you get a loan from the bank, you take that loan to invest it in something, then you take that something and you put it in margin in a third financial institution, then you take half of what you took in number A to basically sell that other part in another financial institution. You're talking about something that would take you just to build the infrastructure of it like years. And this all happened in 8 seconds. So truly a beautiful example of why DeFi is interesting. I still think there's a missing piece which we're aiming towards, by the way, in eToro. So we issued 17 stable coins, euro, dollar, yen, yuan, ruble, gold, silver, etc., in order for those stable coins so people can actually do these kind of transactions on real world assets. So I think we're definitely sort of baby stepping towards people really understanding the real usage of DeFi, but there's still a big question of what's the killer app, who are the users. Obviously users today are sort of finance like myself who can sort of install MetaMask and understand the risk of taking a flash loan and doing arbitrage for 4 different DeFi apps, but I definitely think it's super.
The thing that I'm really curious about is, since colored coins, if you look out right now, there's no one still working on colored coins. Since that kind of died on Bitcoin, or people just aren't focused on that, right? They're a lot more focused on Bitcoin just being sound money and not really having Bitcoin DeFi. What are your thoughts on, since it stopped on Bitcoin, does that make you a little bit more skeptical about DeFi? It seems like you don't have any concerns about DeFi's path. Like, why do you think some of that development stopped? It seems like there's a resurgence where people are saying DeFi can be built on Bitcoin, or Bitcoin's going to play a big role in Ethereum's DeFi. What are your thoughts there, since you played kind of a key role in the beginning of it? Does that ever come back?
First of all, I think one of the key issues is time between blocks on Bitcoin, right? So we have 10-minute between blocks. I don't know if you've had the opportunity yourself to invest in ICOs or trade indexes, but even the block times of Ethereum, you feel it's a bit slow for what you really want DeFi to be.
Sure.
But again, for financial transactions, 8 seconds, 15 seconds, still reasonable. 8 minutes, it's just too much. Lightning potentially could solve that. So you do have some ecosystem, both from Blockstream to create tokens on top of Bitcoin today. You have RSK, which are building basically an EVM of Solidity of Ethereum language into Bitcoin, which is interesting. But I think the problem is we haven't seen sort of the triangle.
For people listening or people watching, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but we're back. You were just saying the challenges, even though there are challenges, there's still people building. So RSK is happening. You have Blockstream, which is adding to these capabilities, but still, it's kind of like that cause.
Right now, the smart contract ecosystem is lagging behind on Bitcoin as a blockchain versus Ethereum. I think Ethereum were still not exactly first to market, but first to scale in smart contracts. And they're seeing some of the challenges of decentralization and therefore challenges of scale that were expected in Bitcoin, right? So there's basically, there's the most decentralized, which is Bitcoin. And then as you go towards more faster transaction per second, you get to less decentralized ecosystem, such as EOS, etc., which have higher transaction per second, but you'd have the core decentralized community saying it's not sufficiently decentralized or not decentralized at all. And I think I have no doubt the concept of smart contracts and DeFi has significant value. I think right now Ethereum is definitely the leading blockchain in decentralized finance, and I think other blockchain have their own merits, whether it's governance on Tezos, whether it's gaming on Tron and EOS, and obviously sort of the big merit of sound money, decentralized sound money of Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of like having them separate like that. All right, enough with the Bitcoin ETH comparison. We're gonna have some people that love that comparison. There's gonna be some people that hate it. It's always a good topic though. One thought here. ETH is probably driving a lot of the trading action, though, at least in 2020, right? It's done very well. It's outperforming. We saw this in early 2019, and then it dropped off. I was talking with Sam of FTX. They're an exchange based out of Hong Kong, I believe, and they do a lot of derivatives work. And I was kind of asking him, I'm going to ask you as well, one of the metrics that I don't get to see, and most traders don't get to see, but you get to see since you run an exchange, is what are the signups like, right? In 2020, it feels like a weird kind of bull market so far. Bitcoin is up, ETH and all these things are up, but I'm not seeing or I'm not hearing about waves of new people coming to the market or waves of people signing up to the exchange. Are you seeing that on your side, on eToro? Is there actual massive amounts of people coming in because Bitcoin broke 10K, or is it still kind of quiet?
Let's call it relatively quiet. So we've seen over the past 4 years the ups and downs of the crypto market. By the way, even if you think outside the crypto market, right? So rallies bring people to trade, period. Yeah. That's how rallies work. That's how the markets work. When stocks start going up, people start getting into the market. So we had in one day, Tesla is the new Bitcoin to some extent. So we had days during 2020 when people coming to open an account and trade Tesla significantly surpassed like 4 or 5x people coming to trade crypto, right? Yeah. Where traditionally it was completely the opposite. People buying to trade crypto is far more than any single stock in eToro. So first of all, we need to understand when there's a rally, when people get excited, that's when waves of people are coming in. So we've seen crypto winter I'd say, throughout 2018, so end of 2018, the beginning of 2019, that was sort of the bottom of the market with Bitcoin reaching 3,000. It was also the bottom of interest of users. We're roughly today at, I'd say, 4 to 5 times higher than that in eToro. So we're 4 to 5 times higher, or 400 to 500% higher than the crypto winter.
Yep.
We saw a revival or an awakening. I remember Consensus last year in the party, we called it the awakening. So we saw Q2 last year, which was really an awakening of crypto suddenly going from 3, I think it was, to 13. Then the next 6 months, the ranges sort of shortened. And then we started this year with sort of a mini rally from 6 to 10,000. I think the people who get excited when Bitcoin goes from 6, 7 to 9, 10 are still the same ecosystem.
Yeah.
I think for us to suddenly see another rally, I think we'll probably need to cross the 20,000 to see what we've seen in the end of 2017. The end of 2017, it was almost like you heard, people knocking the walls down at eToro and a lot of the other exchanges just to open an account.
Yep.
Right? At some point in 2017, I think all of the exchanges out there, except eToro, closed the ability to just register and open an account because they didn't have to enable people to open accounts. Luckily, we had a very scalable sort of infrastructure to enable hundreds of thousands of new accounts to basically open accounts within a very short period of time.
I remember that one of the wildest kind of peak euphoria moments is people were selling their Binance accounts on Twitter or Telegram groups. Like you would, if you had an account, obviously you'd withdraw everything, you'd withdraw your Bitcoin, and then you would sell your login credentials so someone else could access your account. I mean, they're going for like a few $1,000. I saw actual transactions happening on Twitter. So crazy times. Thinking of Binance, they made a move into the US. You've also now made this move into the U.S. CopyTrader playing a big role in eToro US's kind of move there. What's behind CopyTrader? Social trading's been at the core of what eToro is doing, and I used to work in the FX world, and I saw programs like Mirror Trader, and it was so popular in FX. I always wondered why other crypto exchanges haven't tried to do something like that, right? Copy other traders. CopyTrader coming to the US, like walk me through that, walk everyone else through that, because I think there's some people that saw the ad campaign, they're like, whoa, people are going to get wrecked. How does CopyTrader actually work?
Sure. So first of all, we have today about 13 million users from 100 different countries. People on eToro can trade outside the US, can trade stocks, cryptocurrencies, commodities indices, currencies, ETFs, and that everybody can see what everybody's doing on the network. So people from all over the world can access the eToro social trading network and see the month-to-month performance of other users in the network, and talk to them and basically get to see their entire historical trades and asset allocation. Copy trading is a subset of social trading, which enables you to choose a specific user on the platform. Maybe somebody you can actually compare, so you can choose somebody on the platform, look at their track record, and then compare them to the underlying asset. So you can take somebody like Mati Greenspan on the eToro platform and then compare his performance versus Bitcoin. If he's consistently better than Bitcoin, you can basically say, okay, I want to copy him with $1,000. What that does, it copies his entire portfolio proportionally to those $1,000, and every time he trades, it trades in your account in the same time and the same price and the same proportion. So if he generates, let's say, 30% a year, you'll generate 30% a year on your $1,000. Now, to actively trade, to be a successful active trader, requires a lot of time. If you're simply a hodler, you can enjoy eToro by simply coming in and buying, let's say, Bitcoin. You can also invest in our crypto portfolio, which is investing in the top 16 cryptocurrencies in a market cap weighted allocation. So let's say you want to have and exposure to all the top cryptocurrencies, but you don't want to necessarily sort of manage that allocation. You can invest in a copy portfolio, which is a basket of cryptocurrencies. But if you're looking to potentially try and beat the market, then you can actually look at traders, look at their performance, and actually copy them. When we saw that working very well in eToro is actually in time of downturns. So when the market goes up, it's relatively hard to actually beat the benchmark. The key part of copying successful users is looking at what happens when the market go down. So if it's in stocks, so it's looking at how do they perform in December 2018. In crypto, you need to look at when the markets went down. Now, if a smart trader is smart enough to sort of understand sort of negative trend and close his positions or minimize his positions in time, and then when the trend becomes positive, get back into those positions in time. So that's an active trader, which is worth following and potentially copying. If you want to be active in the markets, you want to take those opportunities, but you don't necessarily want to do it on your own.
I'm looking at, I'm on eToro right now. I'm looking actually at your profile. You were saying, what, December 2018 was rough? That was definitely rough for crypto. I think that was rough for, is that rough for stocks as well? Your drawdown was only 4% there. So that would have been a pretty damn good month.
I'm a very volatile trader. So you can't copy me on eToro because we didn't want people to complain if I lose money that they copied the CEO and lost money. But I think what are my returns so far for 2020? I think it's something like 30% for the year.
It's already 34%. You had a 17% month in January, 14% so far here in February. Portfolio.
Drop the mic 34% in 2 months.
Portfolio, you have a Bitcoin trade on right now too that's doing up already 93%. I mean, it's pretty cool. Yeah. Facebook doing really well, but it's really Bitcoin's carrying a lot of it. Crypto portfolio carrying a lot of it. You have BNB 127%. You got some movers. You got some serious movers in 2020.
Yeah, so it's actually also fun. Like, you know, I've been a finance geek since I was 13. I love talking about finance. I was trying to find people in high school to talk about finance in the markets, couldn't find any. So you know, I used to chat in Yahoo groups. But I think it's fun being able to see what someone else is trading and be able to ask him, hey, I see you own Berkshire, I see you own Coca-Cola, I see you own Visa or Bitcoin or Tron. Why is that? And that's a part of sort of the magic of eToro. So we have more than 2 million messages running in the network on a monthly basis, roughly. And it's really about people talking to one another, looking at other people's portfolios, asking questions. And that's how people learn. We all humans eventually learn by observing what other people are doing, asking them questions, and if you're smart enough, copying the most successful ones.
Copy trading, I mean, it's fascinating. But the other thing that's big in FX and stocks, automated strategies. And I know that there's a lot of interest on Twitter. I know personally because I run an account that just kind of tracks high time frame trends in Bitcoin, high time frame trends in ETH, and it tweets out those updates. It was like 16,000 people following. There's other bots that have 15, 20,000 followers as well. I haven't seen a crypto exchange yet really integrate, expert advisors or automated strategies or whatever they were called in MT4. Is that something you've ever looked into, having people kind of like a drag and drop type interface?
So take a look at the Thai copy portfolio. Go into our platform, click copy portfolios, and you see the Thai copy portfolio. So that's a partnership that we've done with really smart guys who run algos on the markets. What they actually do, very similar to what you described, they actually run a process to look at the Twitter sentiment. So how many people are talking and whether the sentiment is positive or negative on each of the cryptocurrencies. And they basically trade that sentiment algorithmically through an API into eToro. So we do have an API in eToro. We do provide that API to partners, and then we enable our customers to actually copy them. So the answer is definitely yes, because we're offering it, and we're happy to meet more algo traders who want to connect to our APIs and enable us to offer more copy portfolios to our customers.
I think that's just one of those. It's. I'm on this page now. This is pretty sweet. It's funny. They're actually they're blowing your 2020 out of the water. You are having a good 2020, but the tie is up 94%. It's pretty insane. January was 81%. But I just think it's insane to see it here. I wish other exchanges would incorporate that too, just for the entire ecosystem.
By the way, I suggest to other exchanges they should not incorporate anything that we do. They exchanges for crypto geeks, and that's it.
Exactly. Makes it easy for you. One of the things I want to end on, Yoni. You've seen. I have a lot of guests on here. Some investors, some analysts, also some people that run exchanges like yourself, CZ and Arthur. But when I ask the investors and I ask the analysts what they think about the halving, a lot of times it's just their guess or kind of their understanding of how this is going to work. Not too many of them have actually lived through a halving and probably held some Bitcoin through that halving. What are your thoughts going into the halving? And not so much are we going to moon or are we going to drop, but do you think that this is the type of event that actually does drive new people in? We just talked about 20K maybe has to break for people for new people to come in. Do you think this event drives a lot of people in?
So first of all, let's understand what the halving does. So by definition, halving reduces daily supply of Bitcoin to the market, which potentially is getting sold today. That's there's no question about it. That's just what happens. If there's X amount of Bitcoin today, every day that miners are doing, and let's assume that they need to sell an X percentage of that to cover their electricity costs and hardware costs, et cetera, that amount is going to get halved, right? So the sell pressure of newly minted Bitcoins in the market is going to be reduced. So if the buy pressure, the amount of buyers simply stay the same, and the amount of sellers are reduced by half, that by definition means there's going to be a period of when Bitcoin goes up, right? So my view is we are going to see an increase towards New York Blockchain Week. Now, again, it's an efficient market, so in theory, there's enough people who already know that they could have bought Bitcoin already based on that expectation and depleted all of their fiat reserves. Since I haven't bought Bitcoin yet, and there's a good chance I will, I'm just waiting for it to correct to 8,000, as I mentioned before. I think a lot of people are still waiting before the rally, but they want to still enter the market. So I'm generally positive and bullish towards halving. Having said that, my view is that a big part of Bitcoin prices is in the Bitcoin swings of $1,000 to $2,000 here and there are still somewhat impacted significantly by the action of whales.
Yeah.
And there are whales that are looking at the derivative markets and are looking at the open interest both on shorts and longs, and are taking advantage of how the markets operate. You can call it arbitrage, you can call it sort of whale trading, but I think there are still sort of those whales who significantly change where Bitcoin is trading at any given moment. By the way, they're not necessarily coordinated. When they are coordinated, like sometimes in LIBOR markets, in the traditional FX markets, that's something wrong. Sometimes whales are just coordinated by nature. So, everybody's sort of doing the same time in the same way, not because they're coordinating, because they already know how other whales are reacting. And
Sure.
that swings the market quite significantly. Again, that's the nature of markets. So potentially they could support significant uprising in price, and they could also sort of put an early stop into it if they try to take out the profits relatively early on. So again, the market has its own sort of nature. It's going to be a volatile year for sure because it started volatile. But we have the halving this year. We're seeing a lot of progress in crypto generally. So I think we should be expecting a volatile year, and I think we're expecting a volatile decade.
Look, I'm planning on staying long. However this works out, I'm also hoping we get that dip somewhere below 8K. It'd be amazing before the halving. So I'm glad you're waiting for that one too. For anyone listening, don't front run us. We're looking for that 8K price. Yoni, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. And one final thought: if you do go to another dinner with Warren Buffett, throw an invite my way. I know Justin gave you the invite. Extend the invitation. Let me in there next time, man. I'm trying to learn.
To a breakfast this time. I'll let you know.
There we go. Let me know. Yoni, thank you so much for coming on. CEO, founder of eToro. Thank you, Yoni.
Thank you very much. Man.